Good morning. Today, it's time for something completely different. If you're ruining the loss of your youth and you're riding along thinking, why can't I ride no hands anymore? Well, we're going to be dealing with that today, why it's happened to you and what you can do about it. So to be clear, there are actually no compelling reasons to ride no hands, but you want to do it because it's cool. So there'll be three elements to this video. The first one will be the interesting one, which is how to ride no hands. The second bit is exercises you can do to help you ride no hands. And the third bit is why you can't ride no hands anymore. But let's get on with the fun bit. First, you need to choose a safe piece of road. You don't want traffic to get in your way as you're riding no hands merrily. And you need to set up your bike properly. And that basically means your saddle needs to be flat. If you've got it at a funny downward angle, this just isn't going to work. And ideally you want a slight downhill, but just a reasonable slight downhill, so you're not going too fast, but you're not going too slow either. The key is speed. You do need to be going at a reasonable pace, maybe 20 plus kilometers an hour. We're going to be doing all of our practicing coasting. Don't try and shall I bring you over here? Don't try and pedal at the same time, not at the beginning. It's not worth it. You can bring that in later. You just need to concentrate on the handlebars. So first stage is you sit up. You've still got your hands on the handlebars. You sit back as far as you can. Get as upright as you can. Now by this time your fingertips are just touching the handlebars. Just touching. Whenever you're coasting, doing a reasonable speed over 20 kilometers an hour, and you just sit further and further back with your fingers on the handlebars. Get comfy. And then as you lighten your fingers on the handlebars, you'll feel a greater and greater weight through your bum onto the saddle. And that's great, because any second now, you'll just begin to lift those fingers off. Just for a second. Just for a second. Get used to the idea. And then do it again. Just for a second. You're always in control. You can always just drop back down, put your hands back on the bars. No one's watching. No one's assessing you. Just lift off. Down. You're coasting. If it starts to wobble, drop your hands back down. You need to scratch your bottom. Put your hands back down. Well, one of them. Just get used to the process. Sit up, hands off, back down. You can do that as often as you like. What you're aiming for, once you have lifted your, sitting back, you've lifted your fingers, you then want to try and this could take a little while, it took me quite a few goes, you want to lift your hands off and sit back. Maybe put your hand on your leg. Oh, but you're not pedaling yet. But just sit back. You can lean slightly just with your hips. Your body stays upright. And I'm riding with my hips and with my knees. And I'm just moving the weight around. Just a balance, trying to keep straight. If you don't want to go straight, you can do little curves, go around bends. That's later. Pedaling later. And it's because you're using your knees and your hips to balance that you might want to use the exercises that I put in part 2. So you want to keep your hands close in case something happens. Hedgehog runs out in front of the road. Small child, well, you get points for those, don't you? Old ladies even more. But there's always going to be little hills, gentle hills on your rides where you can practice this. So when you do get to the stage that you want to pedal, it does feel very odd. You've got your stomach pushed forwards, your pelvis is tipped forwards like this and your back is quite arched. But that's just so you can sit upright on a very flat saddle. But when you want to, just start pedaling. Keep your hands near the handlebars, or at least ready. Don't hold an action cam on a fishing rod rest like I have. That's probably foolish. Do that later. Do it when you're ready. And it's optional anyway. So, this is a repetitive process, so I'm going to repeat myself. You need no wind, a quiet road, a slight downhill, speed. Don't pedal. Sit back, right back on the seat. Touch the bar with your fingertips and let go, and then back. The speed is vital. You try and do this at too slow a speed or uphill, you crash. If you try to do this from your normal riding position, if I took my hand away now, my face would hit my Garmin, which isn't a good thing. And then when you're ready and you feel that you've mastered it and you've been coasting along quite happily, your hands down by your sides, you're leaning into curves, you're doing it all with your hips and with your knees. Hips most of the time, knees if you need a more radical correction, because you put your knee out and you'll go in that direction. The hips, it's so inbuilt, I can't really tell you how to do it. You're just moving your hips from side to side as the bike goes in the opposite direction. Whilst there may be no compelling reasons to ride no-handed, you can use the opportunity to do other things once you are no hands. And some of those could be learning to play an instrument. Or it could be leading your horse into battle. Or even taking refreshment. But do keep practicing, because the day will come when you'll reach the top of Mont Ventoux, and when you're at the top of Mont Ventoux, you are going to want to celebrate getting up there with your normal victory stance, and it's uphill, so you need to get good. Okay, now these, well, I wouldn't go so far as to call them techniques. It's a couple of really silly little exercises, but they're the same ones you would use if you're a lot older and you're beginning to worry about actually having a fall. They're micro exercises, micro changes that your body normally makes completely automatically in order to stay upright. It's the same thing on the bike, and it's slightly different in that we're not used to sort of sitting upright on a bike. So, and the exercise you want to do to help you ride no hands, well, it's pretty simple. You want to stand on one leg. That's it, really. Start with your feet just close together. Put the weight on one leg and just lift off the other. Do it while you're talking to camera. Do it while you're making a cup of tea. Try not to think about it. Try to make it automatic. And the longer you can stand on one leg, the better. But you're making these micro adjustments which your brain receives and processes to help you balance. When you are a bit more used to just standing on one leg, start swaying. Start swaying. And I just put my foot down because I'm not very good, but I'm getting better. But the more you sway, the more adjustments you need to make. And these will help you ride no hands. So if you're thinking, why can't I ride no hands anymore? Well, the most important thing to remember is it's not your fault. What I'll do is I'll go and sit in a nice comfy chair and tell you about all the reasons why it's difficult now to go no hands.
So, you used to ride for miles no hands as a kid.
Maybe you took a break from cycling as life caught up with you a bit and restarted riding later in life, and whammo! You can't ride no hands anymore. You may have lost the ability or even the inclination. Maybe you wobbled a bit when you tried it again. You lost your confidence. Maybe you were thinking about how unattractive you would look if you came off trying to ride no hands and ended up in ER with your arse hanging out of your lycra. We use visual and inner ear systems together with sensory feedback from our joints, our ankles, our knees, our neck, etc., to maintain balance. All of this information is rapidly processed by our brain, which prompts tiny, finely tuned and coordinated responses from our muscles. As we get older, these unconscious processes that help us to balance may not integrate as well or as quickly as they used to. On top of that, the actual quality of the information received by the brain declines. Our eyesight deteriorates, our joints suffer from reduced flexibility, and we develop joint diseases such as arthritis. These all affect our sensory perception of what our bodies are doing. And on top of that, vertigo and inner ear infections become more common. Even prescribed medicines can affect our balance. Now, due to this, we can become averse to activity, which sets us into a vicious spiral, as these effects of aging are accelerated by sedentary behaviour. The good news is that it's possible to break this vicious circle and to slow the process of deterioration, improve strength and balance by being active. Simply by riding our bikes for 2 or 3 hours a week is enough, but the challenge of relearning to ride no hands provides both an additional mental challenge and a physical one as we relearn the finer controls our body needs to do to maintain balance on the bike without using our go-to control tools. Ooh la la.